Hello and good morning to everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of ASAP, the Afrikan Social Activism Playbook. I am one of your hosts, T. Jamal, and am joined as always by my wonderful sister, Michelee. What's going on, sis?
Hey, brother, I missed you this past week and a half almost.
Yes, me
Yeah, I'm
too.
doing.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good though. It's been a pretty busy week, I'll say. Been working and working on some things, finishing up some things, starting some new projects and stuff. So I've been pretty busy. It's been a pretty productive week though. But
Yeah,
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 I'm
we.
feeling good, nice and still healthy and everything. Keeping up with my
Mhm.
workouts like I said I would. So yeah, I'm feeling real good. What about you though? How you feeling?
I've been up and down. I thought I had a little cold, but I'm good.
Mm,
Um, and it's just been a lot. Like last week was a lot.
yeah.
As a black woman, how did you feel last week when all of this ridiculousness with Breonna Taylor went down, where we did not get the justice, and we saw it coming when they gave out that $12 million
Right.
to the family?
Hmm.
We saw this coming, and I was more surprised that there were that many people that were surprised
Right. Right.
by the lack of justice. But as a black woman, how did it make you feel?
I mean, just like you said, like I won't say I'm completely numb to it. That's not true. Of course, it hurts, but my expectations have changed. Like like you said, when as soon as we saw that payment to the family, when they came up with that, I'm like, well, we already know how this is gonna go. We've seen it over and over, even before that came. It's like we already know how this plays out. As long as they took to even, say anything about it, really, or to come up
Right.
to try to say anything about it. The officials involved, law enforcement, they still haven't really, you know, um, given a real response, like no kind of responsibility taken or anything. So
Yeah.
I already expected this outcome, but like you said, I am more surprised, or um I feel some type of way about like just the responses on our behalf. Like I feel like it's going in the opposite direction. I get the disappointment, I get you know the pain and everything that's being expressed. But what I'm looking for is kind of like, okay, now y'all see we got to move in a different kind of way, right? We already know what it is. But of course,
Mhm.
like as far as my feelings, on the actual case, on the situation, uh, you know, it feels, it hurts, you know. Like, we spoke about a lot of other times about just this feeling that, we don't feel protected in a way. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to kind of process. I don't have all the words to explain. Because that it could have been me. Well, if I were
Mhm.
there, it could have been any one of my family members, like somebody closer to home. Like I still do
Right.
see Breonna Taylor or any of these women and men. Children, everyone that's their lives are being taken. Especially at the hands of state sanctioned violence that they're
Yeah.
getting no justice for. Like anytime a life is taken, of course I feel it, like it's us.
Mhm.
But this is not okay. Like there are things that can be done, um and just to make it, known that it's not okay. But like the response that we're getting, the lack of justice is just saying that, no, your life doesn't matter, and this is what we are
Yep.
fighting for. We know that our lives matter, but the fact that there is no there's really no consequence, no real consequences, and no responsibility, and then on top of that, it's more dirt thrown onto our names and our characters.
Hmm.
If you're not the perfect citizen, even some of your own will start to question and doubt. I've seen, just other little things shared about, well, she shouldn't have been dealing with drug dealers, or this is what, like she wasn't a perfect citizen. It's not about being a perfect citizen. You don't deserve to die. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that. And, at the very least, I mean, like, it's just, I don't know. It's no respect. It's I don't know. It hurts, but, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, it is crazy, especially the way we will find ourselves. And again, we talk about this all the time. We talk about narratives
Hmm.
and how we can buy into a false narrative ourselves
Right.
about us,
Yeah.
and we'll be the main proponents to, hold ourselves back because we've bought into the propaganda of others. And we've
Hmm.
also said that it's not, propaganda is not all bad, right? You can use propaganda for your benefit. And
Yes.
that's what we have to start doing. That's why we have ASAP. That's why we have the show,
Hmm.
to show people how. Like we constantly hear what we need to do,
Hmm.
but there is no how do you do that? How do
Right.
I seek justice? How do I use my political power to benefit my daily life? How do I enact or enable my constituency or my vote? How do I make it work for me and not me working for it?
Right.
And so I'm about to, because of this Breonna Taylor thing, right? And so because I've seen so much, how do I want to call it? Confusion and surprise from our own people. I want to do a whole thing on ASAP about the
Mm. Right.
how to seek justice, how to. So, I mean, and that's pretty much what we've been doing on the show by showing people the plays, but I want to show specific political plays.
Right. Because that's what
And
people really need, is like the tangibles,
mhm,
right? Like, what can I
right,
actually do? We know it's sad.
exactly.
We know it's horrible. But what
Hmm.
can we actually do? How can we actually be a part of the change that we want to see?
So
So yeah, talking
we're
about
gonna
is only
finish
one
this
part.
week off with, what we had already had planned, but
Hmm.
probably you and I will discuss some things on different people and different plays that we can go over, but it can last. We can start tomorrow and then go into, finish next week off Tuesday through Friday, finish it off with the same
Hmm.
types of things. But people need to know how. Okay, why should I vote?
Right.
How does it mean any difference if I vote or not? We have to
Right.
show them the plays. We got to show what's going on, because what I don't want to happen is people see that Breonna Taylor didn't get justice right now.
Hmm.
She has not received justice yet.
Hmm.
But I don't want people to go in and saying, okay, well, if that happened, then there's no reason for me to participate in this
Right.
system at all.
Right. It
And
doesn't
that's
work.
not what I
And
want people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't want
Yeah.
people
I
walking
mean,
away with that.
right. And I let me point out one other example that I just thought about it. Well, it's something that I thought about before. But just before we start the show, it was something was on my mind, this clown show that was on the other day, this debate, right?
Oh God. I thought
Oh
about live
goodness.
streaming us watching the debate.
My goodness. That was, oh, but anyway, I was just thinking about, though, like, I know the responses of people in our communities talking about, what's the point of voting? The system is broken, and it doesn't work, and there's no, we don't, our votes don't really count, and, all of these different things. And on top of that, like, with the lesser of the two evils that we're stuck with, the issues with people not wanting to, or refusing to vote for Biden and Kamala are, is based on their past, right? On things that they've done, things that they've signed off on. And let's just take that crime bill, for example. I think it's
Mhm.
very important for us to understand something that happened then, because let's be reminded, well, a lot of us didn't even know about it. We were very, like a lot of
Yeah.
us weren't even born at that time, or, very
Or in
young.
elementary school.
Exactly. We were very young, and a lot of young people now weren't even born at that time to even understand what was going on. And a lot of Black people were experiencing like a high amount of crime, right? And they needed something done. They needed something to be done, which brought about this crime bill that was supposed to, help eradicate some of that violence. But one thing that we fail to realize is that we have to come up with the laws, come up with something that's suitable for us. If we just say, okay, we need help, and we're looking to people who are not a part of our community, who are not us, how are we expecting them to come up with something that's going to be fair for us?
Yep.
That's like, it just seems crazy, right? Like, if you like, I'm hungry, right? You just shouting in the streets, I'm hungry. And then you be mad at how the food tastes. That ain't your mama who cooking the food,
Mhm.
so it ain't gonna taste like what you normally have, right? Like, we have to realize, like, we have to be the ones to make it, to do it, to be a part of our own solution. When you call out to people, like, I've said before, they have been very consistent with who they are and how they feel about us, and this and that. If we are not the ones putting our people first, how are you looking at other people and asking them to put you first? It's all of our responsibility to put ourselves first. How are you
You
looking
know
at
what?
other people to be like, well, you need to do right by me? You do right by you.
Right.
You
First.
make sure you come up with that's why our agendas and our demands and all of this stuff, that's why it's necessary for us to have that. When we see crime, we are the ones experiencing the crime and the poverty and all this and that in our communities. We know what it
Mhm.
looks like. We know what we need. So we are responsible for coming up with those demands. And then you can take it to whatever politicians, whoever is in office. It doesn't matter who's in office. We have to know how to use our power and make our demands. Too often we are sitting back and waiting for someone to do something for us. And I know we're not like, like looking for handouts. We genuinely do need like solutions to issues, but we have to realize that we are the ones responsible for coming up with those solutions, and you
Yep.
demand that. That's what every other community does, right? If they're pulling together their resources, they're making sure to go vote, and for the people who are going to pass what, they're making sure that they know that, hey, you're not going to get our support if you don't, go for these things that we want. We have to first understand that we come up with what we want and what we need, and we have to stand by that. We have to go about it as, as a unit, move forward as a unit, and use our power.
The
But yeah, I
94
mean,
crime bill, it reminds me, and this is how I thought about it, and it just came to my brain. It's like you said, you are hungry, right? But you don't say, I'm hungry, these are the things that I need. You didn't give a grocery
exactly.
list and say, I need
Exactly.
the help to go buy these groceries. You
Right.
said, I'm hungry, and you left it up
Hmm.
to them to decide how to satisfy that hunger. So let's
Exactly.
say Marie Antoinette said, let them eat cake, right?
Hmm.
And okay, so the government said, oh, you're hungry. So they just gave you a bunch of non perishable sweets.
Right.
And now that's all you have to eat. And now you get diabetes.
Mm.
The mass incarceration is the diabetes that came out of us asking for protection from the crime that was happening in our communities. We wanted something.
Right.
We didn't demand what we wanted though, or how
Right.
we wanted it to look. So
Hmm.
we just accepted whatever they gave us.
Exactly.
What they gave
Exactly.
us turned into mass incarceration, which is
Mm-hmm.
diabetes in the analogy that I made. So it
Mm-hmm.
still negatively impacted our community, even though we
Mm-hmm.
needed something. So either we died from hunger or we died from diabetes. Either we
Right.
died from our communities being overridden with criminality, or
Mm-hmm.
everything that we do became criminal. And now
Mm-hmm.
you're taking away people just
Mm-hmm.
because. So,
Exactly.
and they incentivized prisons. So it still ended up being bad for the Black community, even though
Right.
the Black community initially asked for it. But when you
Mm-hmm.
don't have an agenda and when you just come at it from the problem standpoint, you identify the problem to them, and you don't
Right.
say, here's our solution. We have
Right.
it. We just don't have the resources of the political
Exactly.
power to
Mm-hmm.
enact it. So here is
Exactly.
our solution to this issue. Do give us the resources to either do it ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
or we'll point you in the direction of what we want the solution to be, and then
Mm-hmm.
you manage it with your, elected office or whatever it is, whoever we're, speaking to. But this is what the agenda is about. This is
Right.
why you need to have it written.
Mm-hmm.
This is why when we're out there protesting, this is why when we are being activists, it has to be tinged in some type of strategy. There has to
Right.
be a plan.
Yeah. And
We
that's the
have to
thing
know
when it,
what direction we're going so we can direct them to do
right.
it.
And that's the thing, like when it comes to, when like a lot of the commentary from our community now, like with people being, just fed up and not wanting, like they're refusing to even participate in these things, whether it's protesting, boycotting, voting, this and that. All of these things are also necessary. It's not the only solution. Voting is very necessary. It is a tool. You need a hammer to build your house, right? That's not the only thing you need to build your house. You need the wood, you need the drywall, you need the nails, you need all of these different
Right.
things to actually build the house. So that is only one tool, but it's a very necessary tool, right? And that's the thing. I think and I see a lot of commentary like, why are we still marching? Do you know what marching and protesting and all that stuff did for us before? The things that we have access to now that our elders and ancestors worked hard for, and got us access to, that wasn't overnight either. They were beaten over the head. We are very lucky. I mean, well, some of us are still being, actually physically abused and stuff like that, on the front lines.
Mm-hmm.
But it was much worse, before. Like a lot of times, we talk about how back in the day we couldn't do this. Our houses would have been bombed, our families would have been, abused and, tortured and all that stuff. This would be dangerous, before.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of freedoms and stuff that were bought by our ancestors and elders, sacrifices back in the day. But we have to realize the strategy. It wasn't just that they just marched and they just, they held up picket signs. There was a lot of strategy. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put behind that. And we have way more resources and access now that, I mean, it's literally up to us to use it, to know how to use it and strategize.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that voting and marching and boycotting and all this stuff didn't work. It did work. They were all necessary parts of, the struggle. And it also, again, it wasn't overnight. These things, just like you said, you started out when we were talking about, just this Breonna Taylor situation. We don't have justice right now. Her family does not have justice right now. That doesn't mean that it won't ever,
Right.
happen. We have to keep pushing. So the wrong response for us, in my honest opinion, is that the wrong it's the wrong response to say that, hey, this doesn't work, this system doesn't work, so let me completely shut down, let me not participate at all.
Right.
No, that's to show you, let me actually find out how to use our power. That should be pushing us in the opposite direction. And I just fear like that more of us are just because we already don't have enough education on how these systems work, which is not on accident, it's not by accident. It's
Hmm.
on purpose that we don't get a lot of education. Like I don't even remember who a civics teacher was. When I learned about, well, I have an idea who might have been talking about it, but that stuff was not made that important. We don't know that much about the voting, the political process, and how all of this stuff is important. So it is, but that's by design. Again, our schools were designed in a certain way not to educate us.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I mean, we just have to learn more, but I'm just hoping that we wise up.
The worst
And
thing, the worst thing that can happen is apathy.
mm,
The worst thing that can happen to us right now is to become apathetic and feel like, what's the point? This is the same feeling I get when I read about Black Wall Street,
mhm,
and you heard the people, like, there were some interviews and you heard some people saying that they just didn't want to talk about it.
yeah,
They felt dejected. They felt so down because
mhm,
there was no justice.
yeah,
To this day, there has been no justice
right,
for what happened there, right?
right,
And so, and it has a lot to do with the fact that it was such a traumatic experience that some people just was like, what's the point? I just want my
mhm,
children to live and get to
right,
the next, generation. So we're not
mhm,
going to push as hard. We're not going to reach as far. We're not
mhm,
going to, you know, overachieve.
mhm,
We're going to keep our heads down and keep it moving. And then this apathetic sentiment keeps spreading throughout the generations. And now, not only do you not try as hard, you don't even know why. You don't know what your people have already accomplished. So you don't have
mhm,
anything to lean on to say, if they did it, I can do it. So then
right,
it becomes a lack of self-efficacy of things,
mm,
like, we are not able to do these things.
right, right, right,
And we're on the brink of either getting back to that place or breaking through and saying, all right, there is something on the other side and we have to keep pushing.
right, right.
But it's
And that's
always
the
that little decision.
yeah, that's the beauty of like that. So it gets depressing. It feels like hopeless at moments. I have my pockets at times where I'm just like, oh my God, I don't know how we gonna come through. I don't know. But I also feel like encouraged by like how a lot of us are very determined. A lot of our any of these a lot of these different marginalized communities are rising up. And I think what would be important, like unity, strengthen numbers, and also us across different throughout different groups. Like you have all of these different groups who are feeling, who are oppressed, and they want their freedom. And there are more people now who are willing to join the fight, like for us all. I feel, I know I'm one of those people. I know several other people. I know you are. Like when we talk about people being champions, like all of us ain't free, and none of us are free until all of us are free. And I feel that a lot more people are involved in our struggle too. And it's not just us begging for people to see our humanity. I think it's,
Right.
and that was a very important thing too, because it's never been about our worth. It's never been about our self-worth. We should know who we are. They know who we are. And that is why the effort is being put into, into this whole, into our oppression. And so I think that it is starting to look up, like as far as more people, even outside of our community, that are being involved. And again, the young people will always keep us afloat. It's always going to be, you know, there will always be those people who will try to, at least relight that torch if that light is is going, if that flame is flickering. You know, I don't know. I feel a little hopeful. But it's heavy, man.
There has
It's a
to
lot.
be a glimmer. All we need is a glimmer, a
Yeah.
light at the end of the tunnel, something to
Hmm.
keep going toward. And
Right.
again, ASAP is the African Social Activism Playbook. We
Hmm.
do this because we have so many great people to lean on. They've already accomplished so much. They've already blazed the path for us. A lot of this
Hmm.
stuff has been knocked down for us. We just allowed kudzu to grow up in the way, and we don't know how to find the path anymore. But this show
Yeah.
is going to show you not only the people, this isn't just us talking about the people who did things, but what they did,
Yeah.
tangible things that they've done that we can do as well. Some of them need to be modernized. Some of them can just be done again.
Hmm.
And sometimes we just have to remember what has been done. Like so
Yeah.
much has been forgotten. So many people, we don't really know who they are or their accomplishments. Either
Hmm.
we've heard the name before vaguely and don't really know what they did or why it's significant, or we've never heard of the person at all and
Yeah.
really don't know what they did. And so we just want to make sure that we are active and that
Hmm.
hope does not die out, because without
Right.
that, then there is no moving forward.
Yeah.
Like you said, people look at the marches and they say, okay, why are we still doing this?
Right.
I bring this up all the time. The sit-ins were not marches. The sit-ins were very radical, and they were looked down upon by a lot of the elders as too radical. We
Yeah.
need a modern day version of the sit-ins, and I'm still
Hmm.
contemplating what that is in today. How does
Yeah.
that look right now? I'm gonna come up with something before the end of this year
Hmm.
of what the new sit-in, what is the new radical version of like a non-violent protest that goes beyond marching, but you can't take your eyes off of it. It
Right.
gets all the attention that we need. We'll
Hmm.
figure it out. And we're going to keep
Yeah.
digging up more people, putting on the map more activities that have happened in our past, our collective past, and some activities that are currently happening in our present. We're going to start highlighting as well. But
Yeah.
you wanted to talk about something that happened last week. So let's jump into that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, now it's been like the week before last, I think.
Mm,
But yeah, this is, this clown. Anyway,
yeah.
nothing, hardly anything surprises us, but I had learned about this 1619 project that was started up by this sister named Nicole Hannah Jones. She's a journalist, I believe, for the New York Times or something. But it's a Pulitzer Prize winning project that they've implemented like in schools. It's like supplementary education
Mm-hmm.
almost. Well, it's something that they're doing within the schools. They're teaching basically including Black history in school systems. So some schools have picked up this project and are using it, in the schools. And obviously, 1619, the year, commemorating like, well, when they started bringing our enslaved African ancestors over to America. So, it's Black history that's being taught because they made it a point to, like within this project, saying that, of course, it's important to include Black history in American history because it is American history, right? And so it's been working since late last year, I believe, and some schools, like I said, have um, adopted this program and been using it. So it's been, pretty successful. But this fool in here, he decides to get up and of course, he says that it's unpatriotic, that, well, you'll get to hear his words. I'll just go on and play this, but so we'll talk about it a little when it finishes.
By viewing every issue through the lens of race, they want to impose a new segregation, and we must not allow that to happen. Critical race theory, the 1619 Project, and the crusade against American history is toxic propaganda, ideological poison that, if not removed, will dissolve the civic bonds that tie us together, will destroy our country.
Yeah. So we can go on and okay. So you see, he's talking about how the program is racist. He says that also he also recently in this debate he talked about or even before the debate talking about rolling back racial sensitivity training. So what else do we expect? We know that he and people like him, they want to keep up this narrative that any like that talking about the divide, racial divide and everything is due to people talking about it more. Like we're making it up. The people who are making a point to try to bring about solutions, we are the ones who are causing all of this racial tension, and that instead of looking at it like progress, that is actually hurting and dividing our nation, which is completely false. I mean, we already know why. We know the reasons why it is this way. We know that that these programs are needed because we don't have enough, enough people are not educated. They're not forced to have it in their face. And so, that's why these things are a problem. I just think it's kind of ridiculous. Like, I mean, but like I said, I don't really see that. I'm not very surprised much by what Trump is saying or doing these days, but this is more of the reason why I feel that we need to push harder, and just really come up with different plans to make sure that we have our things together, to make sure that we're pushing our own plans, because I mean, of course, people who don't believe in these things, they will try to tear it down.
Yeah.
Of course, you'll see it as division. So, I mean, it's ridiculous. What did you think about that, though?
Definitely not surprised, like you said, but it's just, again, narrative shifting. So instead of, it's the same thing they did in Arizona, where they outlawed or made it illegal to have ethnic studies in Arizona,
Right.
saying that it would bring up more racial division, which is just nonsense. They would rather live in a world where everybody amalgamates or accommodates to their comfort than to have the reality of the situation that everybody has significance.
Right.
They think that diversity is racist.
Right. Right.
Which is, is antithetical. Like their very idea that they're clinging to makes no sense at all. Having everybody be valued as a contributor to, humanity is racist or is bringing on division. No, having a central thought that one is greater than the other and everybody must abide by that one rule, that's what racism is. So allowing people to define these narratives, allowing them to define, wording, allowing them to, draw context from rhetoric is how we get into these situations, because a lot of people will turn to emotion and can't logically argue their way or the point that what I'm saying makes sense. What you're saying doesn't.
Right.
But if your illogical stance, if you say it calmly and then I say my logical stance erratically, then you can invalidate me because you know that you're pushing my buttons by saying this nonsense, especially on the platform and in the way that you're saying it. So it really we have to understand, which is why we talk about strategy so much, right? Because being strategic is not just about making plans behind the scenes. It's about how you enact those plans when you're inside the activity itself. You cannot allow the other team to get you so much off your game. It's just like ASAP is a playbook. So just like in the game or any game, trash talk. If you trash talk or you allow your opponent to trash talk you and it gets in your head and it throws your game off, then they've already beat you before the play even started, before the snap. Like if I'm going to burn you, you can't do nothing to me. You can't touch me. Now I done got in your head and you thinking about so much how you want to take me out that I get past you because you're laser focused in your emotions that you forgot the play that the coach called for you. That probably would have stopped me. But because I just got in your head, I threw off all of your plans. The same thing happens to us. Man, they know how to trash talk. And as soon as we draw, and I use this argument, one of my favorite books is called From Superman to Man. And it's about this white racist senator and this black man who's very well educated, but he can't get a job other than being a porter on a train. So he's having this logical debate with this guy who holds on to white superiority. And fact by fact, the black man on the train throughout the conversation, like, debunks every little myth that he had about white superiority. So when he gets from, okay, intellectual superiority, okay, that's been debunked. Physical athletic superiority, that's been debunked. He starts to bring up, well, black people have a weird smell.
Right.
Now, imagine if he got emotional and went down a spiral and allowed him by saying this weird smell and got offended by it and went down that road. So now all of his logical arguments are out of the window because he's dropped into emotion. Now he's on his level. Now he's in the pig pen slinging around in the mud. We can't allow that to happen. So in the book, what Porter does is he ignores that statement altogether and finishes his point. He didn't even allow the smell comment to like really touch his eye. Like, he heard it, but the reaction of the person after he noticed that attacks wouldn't bother him, he didn't have any other response. He kind of just shut down and was quiet for the rest of the conversation. So
he ran out of ammunition.
Exactly. Little jabs, when they run out of logical arguments, they're going to go on the attack. They're going to attack you personally. They're going to attack you at the emotional level. That's how they're going to do us. But we as a collective have to know that going in and be prepared to ignore it.
Exactly.
Because we cannot allow ourselves to be in ridiculous arguments. Like, it's like arguing with a troll on the internet. First of all, they don't have a real picture as their profile.
Right.
So you arguing with nothing.
Exactly. You arguing with a buff eagle that's sitting up there with the American flag behind him.
You arguing with MAGA Hat 323 on Twitter. And it's like, that's not anybody's name.
Right.
They don't have a blue verified check. They're nobody. They're just bothering you. And it's like, this is going to get us off focus. Now we forgot what the play was. Now we forgot why we are there. Now they can turn the narrative and shift it. They're not going to play the ignorance that they said. They're going to play our response.
And think about it. Like, think about how that works out. Even, like in the classroom or something, on the playground. Who's the kid that's going to get in trouble? The one who swung first. You can have somebody just antagonizing you, just like picking at you. They're going to pick at every little thing, until you start to swing first. And they know that, like, it's part of, like you said, it's part of their strategy. You saw in the debates, like, that's all that was the man had nothing substantial to contribute to that conversation. He wasn't. He was lying. He was throwing out all kind of stuff. It was just, and then he went to, like, he went as low as calling this man's son, like calling him out on being a drug addict. Like, I mean, when you have absolutely nothing else to say, when you have nothing else, and I think a lot of us do get caught up in the emotional part because, of course, it's offensive, and when we're called certain names, or when it sounds too much like this, we want to prove ourselves. We want to say like, oh, I'm not, you're not going to make a victim out of me. But then you have to think about the response. Like you said, it's all part of the strategy. And I think it's funny because I think we're used to it. Like you say, like in games, you have trash talking. What was that? A1 and stuff. And I would just, I remember watching that and stuff and just seeing like how they, like, it was part of the game. Like, you have to trash talk. And if you get like on the court now, when you watch the NBA and stuff now, like if you see these guys getting into fights, you will get thrown off that court. Now you can't even play. Now you're not even in the game no more. So was it really worth it to respond, even when you know
and this is
that was a point to get you off the game?
This is what a team will do. A team will have a player that's not that good be the trash talker.
Right.
The team who has the trash talker, they don't care if that player gets ejected because they don't really need his talent to win anyway.
Right.
But they'll have him antagonize your best player, get both of them ejected. Now you're down your best player. They still have their best players. Like,
and now you just lost.
Dennis Rodman was that disruptive force. He was good, but he'll get in your best player's face. But you still, if Dennis Rodman get kicked out the game, they still got Michael and Pippen on the floor. So now your team got no chance to win.
Right.
So it's just like,
I mean, but
we
when you
have
think
to
about
make
it, it's
sure
actually good. It's a good strategy. Like when you
great strategy.
Yeah, you got it. But we have to stop like being distracted. We have to learn that game, and we don't. It's not that like we have to be as low down and dirty, but at least be aware of what the tricks are. Be aware of the game. You gotta know what the rules of the game are if you are engaged. We didn't choose to be in this game, but guess what? We in this game. Okay, we got to know how to play it. We got to learn. If we want to come out of this, not a victim, we have to learn what the plays are. And it's like, and the crazy thing is, it's the same plays over and over. We have been in the same game, literally. A few rules have changed up. Now people can't say whatever they want to say. They have to be a little more politically correct, but it's the same game. And I think, even it was something that you said, like just about, was it about the country or, it's not how it's supposed to be. Like when it comes to with this, how we have to have racial sensitivity training and all this stuff. We are working in this system. We are citizens. We are, we have to be working and participating in the country or whatever, whatever capacity we are serving in. So we do need things in place. We need like certain protections and everything like that. It will make our lives and make everybody's life a little bit better if we do include these things, right? So it's very necessary. But I think they are only doing what they have always been, and so like supposed to be doing according to them, right? Like their founding fathers, the very start of their country, it was not to include us. So we have to understand it. I think when we talk about just everything that's going on in the system and, and within the country, all of these systems, we constantly say how it's not, some of us know that it's not broken. It was designed this way. And so if we really approach it understanding that, like, that doesn't mean that it can't change. That doesn't mean that we can't change it, but we cannot be fooled by this idea that, well, our founding father said that we are all supposed to be equal. You wasn't included in that. Okay. So, the emotional part, I know maybe it's hard to accept that you were not a part of this plan. You were not in the original design. We can change it up, right? We can make it fit us, but we have to face the reality that the people are the people who came from the original, founders, the people who went in there and raped and pillaged and all this stuff and enslaved our ancestors. They are there doing what they were meant to do, what their founding fathers and the people who established their country are what they meant to do. They are not going to let that unravel easily. Yes, we know that it's wrong. We know that they done people wrong. They are going to be scrambling to keep together what their founders, and ancestors have built. We're passionate about who we come from and where we come from and what our ancestors and elders have done. You think that they're not? They do have pride, and like the Confederate, the people who still wave the Confederate flag and stuff. Like, they are fighting for their legacy, for, that's their history. That's who they came from. It is a symbol to them. We have to just set things straight, but don't be fooled that we came in here like as an equal partner. We were never thought of to be like a part of this design. And so I think if we can get past that, that part, it could be a little emotional, but if we can get past that part, I think, we can just see things a little clearer to see our mission. What is our mission here?
I think that point that you just made perfectly brings us into our highlight reel for today, because our ancestors knew what the founding fathers were really about. Mm-hmm. And so, like we keep saying, our people were never just sitting idly by, accepting passively our condition, our oppression. At no point in time can you point to it. And we will continuously prove to you that what we're saying is valid. So today we're talking about Paul Cuffey. Michelee, tell people a little bit about Paul Cuffey, another champion.
Listen, we we were talking about African abolitionists, right? People who, even though a lot of them, well, all of the people we mentioned were born free, right? But they still went and fought for, their people who were still enslaved, or who were enslaved. And so Paul Cuffey, I am like, one of the first, or the first, as is documented, like Black millionaire in America. He was first of all born into freedom. His mother was a Native American, and his father, Kofi. Actually, his name comes from Kofi, his father's name, which is a male born on Friday, if you didn't know, coming from West Africa. So his father was, was enslaved, but he, eventually got his freedom. And anyway, he taught his children, they had pride instilled into them very early on. And Paul and his brothers and stuff, they had big dreams, right? Big ambitions. And Paul was very interested in sailing and boats and all this stuff, right? So this man and his brother, they went on to found, like they had a shipyard, and they would sail to Africa and to Europe, and they were trading, they were doing business. And this is during the time of enslavement. Paul Cuffey was alive from 1759 to 1817. This is during the period of enslavement. And this man he was rich, he was wealthy, he had power. This man, I'm sure we're going to talk about it, some of the things that he had done. He and his brother got the right to vote for Black men back in that time. Because back in the day, the people who were able to vote were wealthy men, men who owned property. Mm-hmm. And so they tried to, just front on him, and they wanted, because he was making so much money, they tried to tax him. And he's like, hold up. Well, I don't have the right to vote. didn't y'all, weren't y'all just talking about, no taxation without representation? We want the right to vote. And so that's how he was literally able to go and meet with the sitting president at the time, Madison. Like, this man, he had pull. He was wealthy. He started his own school. He started the very first integrated school in America. This is during the time of enslavement, ladies and gentlemen, right? He wanted his Black children to learn in a school. They didn't have a school available in his neighborhood, and he built the school and allowed his white neighbors' children to attend the school also. So he actually built the first integrated school in America. It's just so many great things about him. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about him, just some of the amazing things that he's done, but that's just a little bit. I'm amazed by him.
So Paul Cuffey, like you said, was a sailor. He was a business person. He was business minded. But one of the elements of what you said that I want to kind of harp on is he used America's words against them to get what he needed.
Yep.
You want to tax me because I'm making money, but I refuse to be taxed if I'm not equally represented in your so-called system. Those are your words, America. And that tactic has been very successful throughout the entirety of the Black freedom struggle. This is why Dr. King even talked about the founding fathers in the speech, because if you say that all men are created equal, then I'm going to hold you to your own standard.
Exactly.
And put it on an international level, because America loves. Now, at this time, America didn't have the international pull that they have today. So Dr. King's tactic was not to appeal to the domestic America, but to the foreign policy America. Paul Cuffey was able to attack domestic America and say, hey, y'all just had a war.
Just
had a war.
It was
talking
a few
about
years
no
ago,
taxation without representation.
Exactly.
So I remember what's happening. So, so using their words against them again, like we keep saying, understanding the rules to their game and beating them at it, because they get handcuffed by the words that they say. They're handcuffed by their own standards that they set, because they're so busy being the world's police, telling other countries how to treat their citizens. When we show these other countries, sometimes America's enemies are our biggest allies to hold America accountable to us.
And we need to know how to use that power too.
Showing
Just like what Cuba
them
did, right? What Castro
exactly
did with Russia.
That's what Castro did, Indochina, all of these things. When they saw that America was mistreating Black people, they said, how dare you tell us what we're doing or how we're treating our citizens when you can't take care of business in your own backyard?
Exactly.
And so America had to start making all these different moves and changes for Black people. That's how we got all of these policies. We didn't get the policies just because we were trying to get them to empathize with us or trying to get them to see our value. They don't care anything about that. And racism isn't even about whether you like a person or not. It's about control. It's about power dynamics. And if you shift those power dynamics, I can like you, I can be married to you and still not want to give you power dynamics. So those things we have to know this when we're fighting this. Accommodationalism is not going to work. We can't just accommodate. We can't just say, maybe if we become more acceptable to them. It has never been about that. That is the trick. That's the switcheroo that they're pulling.
It's one more. It's like when I see the memes, like on social media and stuff, you see a lot of people. That's where we share our thoughts and emotions on a lot of things that's going on in the world. And I see, especially during these times, and people will share these little memes and pictures of a little black boy, a little black and a white child holding hands and playing together. Black people and white people have been able to laugh and play and walk and, and all of this stuff together. It's never been about not being able to be friendly and not being able to, it's never about that. Black children, enslaved children, and the white slave master's children were playing together on the plantation. That has never been our issue, is getting along. We can always get along, but it's not about that. That's not what racism is. That's not the system of racism, right? And so I think a lot of us have just the wrong idea about it. And that's what's important for us to learn, to know, like, we've been talking about, is knowing the rules, knowing the game. And that's an excellent point. And that's what I was saying about, not like, when we have to know what it is, like, know that we were not a part of the original design, but we still know the tools, like what lawyers do. That's what I appreciate about, I used to go to these meetings with the Moors in Atlanta. I used to go to some meetings, and they talk about, they study the Black's Law Dictionary, and they learn the words and stuff, to be able to represent themselves in court and all of this stuff. They have to know, we have to know the rules. We have to know how to use their language, against them. We have to know, because that's a part of the strategy. It's not don't fall for it. Don't believe so much into it, that it's that you're going to get caught up in it, like, emotionally, but know the game. Like, wait a minute, you said, I got a blue passport just like you do. You said I'm a citizen. So these are what the citizens' rights are supposed to be, right? This is what I'm supposed to be able to have and, and do as a citizen. So, play their game. We are like, I don't know. We don't get so emotional and caught up into it. And because it's not about emotions. It's not, we shouldn't have to be convincing them to like us. It's not about respectability politics. It's not about how we dress and how we talk and what education we have. It's not about our credentials. We have to know where we are and, like, really, again, set our agenda and know what our needs and wants are, and go after that using the tools that we have. We have to know how to use the tools. That's so important.
And that's exactly it. Understanding how to use those tools and what they mean, and just understanding that it's all just a game.
It is.
Like,
it really is.
It's a game of power dynamics. And so when we talk about Paul Cuffey and him flipping their words on them, they couldn't say anything. They were handcuffed by their own logic. And it was like, you're right. So now it's also, so did they want, what was more valuable to them? Keeping him down or taxing his money? What was more important? Because what did he actually, they wanted that money. So they conceded the vote. They were like, okay, we're going to keep them from voting, and he gets to keep 100% of all this money he's making. Or we can give his people the vote, and we get to tax him like we tax everybody else. So again, that green spoke a little louder than they're wanting to, keep our access away from certain things. So that's another thing. That's another key. Like, we have to look at the keys. Like, when we are telling these stories, when we're talking about these people and what they've done, we have to see what was the winning element. What was the keys to victory? Like, they break down every week after the game or before the game in the pregame show. Okay, this team has a high-powered offense, but their defense struggled. So their best defense is to have a good offense, to have a good running game. And maybe by running the ball, you eat up the clock. You keep their offense off the field because your defense sucks.
Right.
So now your running game is serving as your defense because the other quarterback can't score if he ain't playing. So it's about us looking at the keys to victory. Paul's Cuffey, it was, first of all, him understanding their game, using their logic against them. Second is understanding that they're going to value his money. So they're going to want a piece of that. And then leveraging something out of that, the vote, not just for himself, but for all Black people. Well, at the time, men. But that was that leverage that he waved. And he was like, okay, now I see how to play. And then Paul Cuffey also, like you alluded to, had some ships and was doing commerce throughout the world and was actually, like Marcus Garvey talked about, back to Africa, maybe like 100 years later, and wanted to do, the Black Star Line and to do commerce between African Americans and Africans. Paul Cuffey did it.
Right. He was doing it.
Actually did it. Like, had a boat, took people from Massachusetts to Sierra Leone, was in talks to set up a colony, kind of like they wanted to do Sierra Leone like they did Liberia.
Right, exactly.
But he did, even though they didn't make Sierra Leone an American colony, he was still able to take people from America, Black people, back to Sierra Leone, and they settled in. Right. And honestly, because it wasn't colonized, it was less friction with those who repatriated back to Sierra Leone.
Right.
So
think about like this.
Good thing.
Right. And he was trading, like he was making money. This is a man who also, he employed just Black people, right, on his ships. And he was like, he was a sailor, a merchant, right? He was traveling to to Britain and everything, getting goods and selling them, taking them back and forth to the Americas, to throughout the Caribbean, back to Africa. Like he was a businessman. He was, like you said, bringing people and establishing those bonds and stuff. He was working with, he had even converted to a Quaker, right? He became a Quaker and everything. Like it's so much about him that, he was just a real, I don't know. I don't even know. A lot of people who came after him, who we admire, took a lot from him as well. And I wonder, I always wonder, like, did a lot of the people, know about him and, Delaney and, just a lot of other people. I wonder, did they actually,
that time period
of all of that?
That time period goes very unnoticed, but I think those who were in the know, because I'm pretty sure Garvey was very knowledgeable of them, because I think he pulled a lot of his rhetoric, even like Africa for the Africans, right? Exactly. That's Delaney. Back to Africa. That's Cuffey. Like he knew and just brushed it off. So again, so let's take that element, right? So Marcus Garvey, we just undiscovered or uncovered for a lot of people, Paul Cuffey and Martin Delaney, who were great influences on Garvey. What did Garvey do? He put their efforts together and created UNIA. That's him taking their plays and putting it to action in his time period. Right. This is what we are trying to do.
Right.
This is what we're going to do.
Even people after him, right? Like Malcolm X's parents were Garveyites, right? And so it goes on. And so that's why it's important. That's what we're trying to show you by bringing a lot of this information. Is like we're basically just repackaging the same information, the same ingredients, right? We come from the same stock. We are the same people, right? With the same ambitions and different things. Like you said, it was never a period in time where our people did not want to be free. It wasn't a time where we just sat and just settled in our situation and we're just satisfied. We've always been fighting. We've always it's the desire for every human being to want to be free. And like that doesn't change with us, whatever situation that we've been through. And that's what keeps me hopeful. It's just knowing that we'll always have this drive, right? We'll always have this fight. And it gets hard. And like I said, sometimes it feels discouraging, and, and you start to wonder, will it ever get better? I think we do need to, like, just seeing how like the advancements in society, like as time goes on, it can be a little more difficult, to navigate this stuff. But that's why we have to become knowledgeable, like knowing the rules, knowing the rules of the game, knowing the laws, and knowing how to use the system, because when they know
our
that
benefit.
Yeah, when they know, exactly, use it to our benefit. When they know that we are becoming wiser and we're gonna, know to use their rules against them, you think that they won't build up a defense, right? Like when you think about, weren't we talking about? Was that me and you? We were talking about how, like that movie, in the movie Catch Me If You Can, with and this guy, like, he learned how to scam these people, right? And then they later hired him after he had, like, like all of these top what do they call it?
Scammers, con artists.
Yeah, and what's the guys that break through the firewalls and stuff? Like hackers and stuff.
Yeah.
They end up getting jobs, right? Like from these top companies, because they know that they want to use these people, right? How do we beat you, right? Like, how did you figure this out? How did you beat us? And so they're going to use it as a tool. And it's no surprise why you have a lot of people who I feel like, when we talk about, like, from the Breonna Taylor case, the attorney general, this guy, and people like, like Candace Owens and, Ben Carson's, and we always had those, we've been having a lot of those amongst us for a while. And some of them, I will not say, let me just say, I won't say that all of them or most of them even have to feel like, I don't think that we can pull their Black card. Like, I think that they can still love themselves as Black people, and, but like we talked about before, there are some of us who don't feel that, who feel that, like, some of us are holding us back, like, or like they have their own idea of what Blackness is or how Black people should move, and you know what I mean, like, and so they do look down upon some of us, like, well, they don't represent, Black people. This is how Black people should be. And so if we don't fit inside their idea, then they're going to seem like a traitor to us. So I don't think that they always have to not like being Black or not like Black people. It's just their idea. It's certain Black people, maybe, and their idea of what Blackness is and their survival. They're also thinking, in order to survive, we have to, we have to do this, we have to do that. And if you're not trying to play those games, then hey,
we have to come to a point where I don't have time for people who aren't champions.
Right.
And I don't have time for them to be around me. I don't want them in my circle. I don't want them to know my plans. I don't want them anywhere near me, because, and I keep saying this, the first Black people who ever got hired by the FBI were hired to infiltrate and sabotage Marcus Garvey.
And they did just that, right?
Exactly. So we know the capabilities of those types of people. There were Black people, and those same types of people were the ones who were working with Europeans to capture some of us and enslave the lot of us. Like, people are people. I don't care who you are or what your ethnicity is. There are some people who are just fatally flawed. And it don't matter what their ethnicity is.
And again, they want to be free. We all want to be free. And some of us have a different idea of what freedom looks like and what freedom can be.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it drives some people to desperation and shadiness.
Desperation, betrayal. And so you can see that it doesn't matter where you are. You can be on the continent. You can be here in the United States. You could be one of the people who was in the Caribbean or in South America, or you could be a European and be a traitor. It doesn't wear a skin color or, anything. So we just have to know who the people that we trust are, and really just move forward with those who want to move forward. And like we always say, we welcome bandwagon people too. We welcome
Yep.
them in
It
as
don't matter
well.
when you started wearing your jersey, you on the
Yeah,
team, right?
exactly. So long as you are legit and you're committed. And that's
Yeah.
our only policy. So
Mm-hmm.
it's important for us to know these things. Paul Cuffey. And we're gonna be reviewing, and like we say, this is ASAP. It's a playbook. And these people had plays, they had strategies, they had keys to their victories,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we can learn from their shortcomings. We can definitely learn from their victories. And it is
Mm-hmm.
up to us to do something about it. And we want to actualize African unity. And by doing that, what we mean is making Pan-Africanism tangible, showing the diaspora that there was a Back to Africa movement in America. There were multiple ones. So
Right.
when we
In
talk about
different time
unity,
periods.
exactly, when we talk about unity in the diaspora, we're not talking about something that is some new idea. We're not
Mm-hmm.
talking about something that is impossible. We're talking about something that our ancestors have done time and time again. It's just that now I believe we have the ability and the technology to make it sustainable and not just a moment in time, or not just a generational thing, where it is intergenerational, where it continues to go, where we have that oral history and we keep that movement going, where it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have an end goal, but it is for it to continue.
Right.
So if you want to know more, please visit africanunity.us. Find African Unity on all social media platforms. Follow us at African Unity everywhere, because we need your support. We need your help to continue what we're doing, because a lot of the times people just get frustrated. And the last thing we want is apathy to start spreading.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, definitely, y'all, please research the people, like do further research on the people who we're telling you about, and just be inspired by their stories, inspired by who they are, and realize that it's inside of all of us. We all have the ability, we all have the same passions and ambitions, right, as our ancestors, those who came before us. And I think we can pull together, use what we know, use what we have, and just keep hope alive. Do what we have to do. That means finding out what the tools are and how to use them. And so, yeah, I just personally want to say, just stay encouraged. Don't feel hopeless. Things are not overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. So, we just have to keep it going. All right, y'all. Well, love you. Make sure you do your research. Make sure you go out and vote, and research.